Hi guys! It's been almost a year since I last uploaded. Sorry about that. I just wanted to take the time to give kind of reasoning as to why I've been gone from YouTube for this long. I also want to give an honest review of my first year in the UK because I feel like it's a really important thing to do. When I started this channel, I wanted this to be an honest place for me to show my experiences over in the UK, and I feel like not mentioning this would take away from that. Just a short disclaimer here, I'm in no way trying to put anyone off of the University of Southampton or studying abroad in general. These are my experiences and my experiences only. I highly doubt anyone would have this exact set of circumstances that I do, and that would be necessary for things to turn out exactly as they have for me. So please, if you're interested in Southampton or you're interested in studying abroad, do not let this put you off that. I loved being over there for a year, and I made a lot of new friends, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot just knowledge in general, you know, university. Is this something you're truly interested in? Go for it. You know, follow your dreams. You only have one life, and I think it's really important that you live it the way you want to. I was studying over in the UK. I was doing a 3-year bachelor's degree in math with statistics. I was studying at the University of Southampton. I also feel like I should mention that I am diagnosed with a mental health condition that can affect my studies. Because of this, I'm registered with the disability service at the university, who offer me things like extended test time, a separate room to take my test in with, I believe it's up to 10 other people, and they recommend lecture notes whenever possible, recorded lectures whenever possible, and other things like this that are put in place to help me succeed. My first semester studying in the UK did not go at all how I had expected. When I left the US, I was on medication. Unfortunately, upon arriving in the UK, I discovered that I could not stand that medication as they could not prescribe it. So they went through the process of testing a couple different similar medications to see if anything that they could prescribe would work for me. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and eventually my GP decided to just take me off of medication altogether. This made things quite difficult as I had been on the medication for over a year, and it was helping to a certain extent with some of my symptoms, which, being unmedicated, did come out in full force. In addition to this, I was struggling with the disability services. They weren't responding in a timely manner to any of my requests, or sometimes, in some cases, didn't respond at all. I can recall a case where I had emailed my practitioner, I believe it was 2 or 3 times, and never received a response, so I made the decision to go in person and try and speak with her, only to be told that I had to email back on high priority. I did do this and still did not receive a response. After this happened, I met with my personal tutor, who I had met with every week or so, sometimes every 2 weeks. If you're not familiar with personal tutors, they're sort of similar to like an advisor in college in the US or like a guidance counselor in high school. My personal tutor advocated for me and reached out to the disability services on my behalf and asked that they please contact me as soon as possible. After a couple days, they did get back to me, but unfortunately they told me there was nothing they could do for me as the recordings that I was having issues with were optional. Obviously, given my condition, having these recordings is very important, as if I have to miss a lecture for some reason, or if I miss a bit of a lecture and I'm actually still in the room and I just like, you know, blank out for a minute, or just miss a bit of something, I'm able to go back later and actually kind of review what happened and fill in the blanks that I might have in my notes. Without these recordings being of a quality where I could actually use them, or existing at all in some cases, it made succeeding in my course very difficult. I was already struggling with the structure of the course. There was a lot of lectures. For example, my Monday, I was in for at least 6 hours, I believe, straight through. Most of my other days at university were the same, with the exception of Wednesdays, which I believe I only had 1 hour. Having a busy schedule like that was already a struggle for me, and on top of that, there was a lot of weekly homework assignments in my math modules, and I was struggling to keep up with them and produce the work necessary. I discussed this with my tutor in detail. We tried to play it by ear almost and see how things went. After hearing about the lecture recordings from the disability services, I did take matters into my own hands and reached out to the module leads directly and asked if there was anything they could do to help me be able to succeed in these modules, and most of them were very helpful and provided me with their copies of notes that they were using during the lectures after the lecture had happened, so I was able to fill in those blanks. But unfortunately, given the fact that it was December, I had already missed most of the semester. Given all of these circumstances combined, I was not at all confident going into my January exams, and on top of this, I had been referred off to a secondary service by my GP after he'd decided to cease medications, only to find out that they deemed me ineligible for service, which meant that my condition was going completely untreated. I struggled with an extremely low mood, probably the lowest I've had in years. Unfortunately, given this and everything else, I was only able to pass 1 out of my 4 exams. This was especially difficult for me given the fact that the only exam I did pass wasn't even a math module. After my semester 1 experience, I went into semester 2 and tried to have a completely different outlook. I decided that I would meet with my disability practitioner again and see if there was anything else that she could do to help me. I did eventually have that meeting in February after my January exams, and she decided that additional support like a note taker and a peer mentor might be very helpful for me, and I agreed and decided to sign up for those. Unfortunately, once again, the disability services let me down, and I did not hear back regarding these services until my spring break, which was the end of March and the beginning of April. I continued to struggle with my mental health in general. Again, as I was going untreated because I was unable to access the secondary services and my GP had nothing further he could do for me, the only option I had realistically was to reach out to my university's counseling service as well as try and get a re-referral back to the secondary services. As the counseling service is run by the same part of the university that runs the disability service, I'm sure you can guess what happened next. I never got counseling. I did all the paperwork they asked me to do, I sent everything in, and I got an email in February telling me that they would contact me as soon as there was an opening for me to have my first initial consultation. I never received another email from them after this, and I reached out to them a couple times after waiting about 4 weeks, as these counseling services can be quite backed up, especially right after exams and during exams, so I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Every time I reached out to them following that 4 weeks, it was met with silence, including when I went in person. As my mental health was still going untreated and the disability services were of nearly no use to me, I was still in the same position I was at the end of semester 1. I was still struggling with my work and struggling with deadlines and struggling with keeping up with my timetable in general as it was so busy. The one saving grace I did have, however, was my Introduction to Demographic Methods module. As I had discussed, I had taken an option module in semester 1. In the UK, you take mostly the modules based on what your course is. In my case, it's math with statistics. However, I'm allowed to take one optional module each semester in year 1 that I could choose myself. It didn't have to be in math. It could be in pretty much whatever I wanted, as long as it fit into my schedule. I found this demographic methods module, and I thought that the content was really interesting, and I decided to make the decision to take it. I am so thankful I decided to stay in this module because I had actually considered switching out and taking a psychology module instead. I decided to hold off and wait and see how I felt about it, and it turned out that I loved it. For those of you who are unfamiliar with demography, I know it's something I hadn't heard of prior to going to the UK, so I'm sure some of you probably haven't heard of it. It is basically population studies, so fertility, mortality, migration, things like that. In this module, I was able to apply the math knowledge that I did have and that I did understand with human interaction, which was another interest that I really held. I took a lot of psychology modules in high school and in college over in the US, and it's just always something that's interested me. So it combined these two interests of mine that I had, and it was almost the thing that kept me going through semester 2. I was still struggling a lot with the content of my math modules, and at the end of the day, sometimes I would just be so burnt out with it, and I just didn't even want to do it anymore. I always pushed myself to go to these demography lectures because I actually understood it and I enjoyed it and it was fun for me. Going into April, I had some discussions with my personal tutor, and at that point we decided that it might be best to consider my next options, as again, I did not feel confident about my upcoming exams. Given the fact that I had failed most of my semester 1 math modules, if I were to have stayed on my math course, I would have had to at least resit semester 1, but if I failed semester 2, I would have had to resit the entire year. After lots of consideration and talking with people at the university, I decided that staying on my current math course would not be the best course of action. I didn't feel that that course was right for me. The structure and the style of the course didn't work well with my needs. In my demography module, for example, I was able to have the lecture recordings pick up the PowerPoints and take notes along with the PowerPoints, and if I had wanted to, I could even have used software to help me along with this process so that I was able to record his audio and, again, fill in all the blanks that I might have missed. It made it a bit more difficult for the math modules because they often wrote on the board and I was not able to import the PowerPoint because there was none. It didn't exist. I was also able to secure that re-referral to the secondary health services in April, and I had an appointment scheduled for late May, so things were looking up in that department. After discussing how the course wasn't right for me with my tutor, we discussed my next options, one of which was to reset the year, which I had ruled out pretty much from the beginning, and my other option was to change courses. This is something I looked at and initially thought that it wouldn't be the right choice. It would require me to reapply for a new student visa, it would require me to pay all the application fees again, and it would require me to leave the country over the summer. I had already planned to leave the country over the summer, so that in itself wasn't a big deal. However, it did affect my ability to come back to the UK when I wanted, as I could only come 30 days before the start of my course. I took a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do and spoke to people in charge of various courses at my university. Given my interest in my demography module, I thought that following that route would be the best decision for me, as I enjoyed it, I was good at it, and it was fun for me. At the end of the day, I didn't walk out of those lectures feeling stressed out or let down, just disappointed. I was excited, I was happy. I would go home and I would talk to my boyfriend about what I had learned that day, and I would explain things to him without having to refer back to my notes because I was just so excited and passionate about the topic. I was able to find a course at my university called Population and Geography. That course included the demography I was interested in, which in turn included statistics, as demography does encompass a bit of statistics and math in general. But it also allowed me to explore geography, which is something that I enjoyed way back when in school, but never really had the opportunity to pursue further. I think it's important to mention that demography was a topic that was never accessible to me in school here in the US. The fact that I was able to find this new love of a topic while studying in the UK is very special to me. It makes my experiences over the last year worth it. I spent the majority of April, May, and June sorting out the possibility of transferring to the population geography course. I also spent this time trying to, once again, help myself, I guess. I was still being untreated. I had no medications, no therapy, any of that. My secondary services hadn't come through for me yet, so I was still trying to do whatever I could for myself to just hang in there a little bit longer. I was able to go to my appointment at the end of May. I was not given a decision right away on the status of that. I actually ended up going home to the US before I got that decision. I now have that decision. I was told that I am once again ineligible. However, they have suggested a few alternative services that I plan on looking into further. Now you might wonder why I'm planning on looking into these services further. You know, hey Tori, you're at home. Aren't you staying in the US? Well, the answer to that, my friend, is no. I am proud to say that I was indeed accepted into the Population and Geography program. I have one module, Introduction to Demographic Methods, that I am able to transfer from last year. I got a first, which is pretty much the highest you can get. I'd say it's equivalent to a letter grade A in that module. So I am able to transfer that from this year. I will be starting from year 1 of that course. All in all, I'm very happy that I made the decision to go to the UK. Without this past year, I would have never discovered my interest in demography. I would not be pursuing this new course in population geography, and I don't think I would be the person I am today. I've learned so much about myself over the last year and a half, going through the visa process and starting this new course and struggling with my mental health and struggling with this course and learning new things and making new friends and going through the visa process again. Thank you if you've watched to the end of this video, because I know this video ended up being about 10 times longer than it should have been. Again, I felt like it was very important to do, as I need to be honest with everyone about my experiences while I'm in the UK. I don't want to display this false persona that everything is wonderful and you never have a bad moment, you never get homesick, you never struggle with mental health, you never struggle in general, because that's just not how it is. It's not how it works. Every international student I've talked to or been friends with gets homesick. It happens. You miss home, you miss foods, you miss your parents, you miss your brother, your sister, your best friend. You just miss these things. You miss your pets. It's inevitable. I really hope to be able to continue making videos on this channel, perhaps a bit more frequently than every year. So thank you guys for watching this. If you've watched till the end, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!